very, very special guest that I will hand the mic over to.
Hi, Tara. Hi, Code with Klossy Scholars. Hi, Tara. Oh my gosh, it makes me so happy. Every time you're such a good hype woman, by the way. I mean, a phenomenal teacher, goes without saying, but you're amazing. And thank you for kicking off this morning, or I guess we're all across the country, so we're all in different time zones. So whatever time of day it is, I'm just really happy that we're all connected right now, and I am so excited to be here and to see everyone in this Zoom chat. I always love just flipping through this Zoom and seeing so many incredible scholars and beautiful faces and crazy themes that I'm always somewhat confused about and always want to understand what the story behind it. So we'll get to that. But this is, as you know, the third and largest wave of Code with Klossy camps so far this summer. So this is a really big, really exciting 2 weeks for all of us. And we're so honored that you're all a part of it with us. And it's incredible to join you guys in this space and have this virtual space that exists for all of us to come together across the country. And I know we have scholars here from literally all across the country. We have some scholars in Boston. Can I see some hands up from Boston? Dallas, scholars in Dallas represent. And LA. And then all the way in my hometown of St. Louis scholars, where are you at? Let's see ya. Come on. All right, I love it. Well, so happy everyone's here and so happy we can all be together in this virtual way. And as for instructors, it's unbelievable but true. And Natasha and Lucas are teaching from Hawaii, which, by the way, I'm so jealous, and it's awesome. And we're so lucky to have you guys as teachers. And on that note, another incredible instructor is Marnie. Can I see some scholar hands whose instructor is Marnie? Yay! Okay, well, for those of you who know Marnie, Marnie is amazing. And this is actually the third summer that Marnie has not only been an instructor with Code with Klossy, but celebrated her birthday with us because Marnie's birthday was last Thursday. So some snaps for happy birthday, Marnie. Yay. And I've been just hearing incredible things about what's been happening in all of the camps. And you know, I know you guys had a big day on Monday, pitch parties. I got to drop in for a couple, and I thought I was being super stealth and just kind of like being a fly on the wall. And then I got totally like, my spot got blown up, and in the chat, people were like, who's KK? And is Carly here? And I was like, okay, I gotta say hi. But I just love listening in on your pitch parties and hearing kind of what you're starting to think about. And now by this time of the week, you obviously are very much in the thick of it in building your projects. And on that note, I'm actually excited to hear about some of the projects that you're all working on. And actually, I know we have hundreds of us in this chat. So, you know, it's hard to, I would love to unmute you all and hear what everyone's working on. But if you could chat into this chat here. Oh, wow, it's blowing up here. Okay, well, if you can chat into the chat, some of the project pitches that you heard that really inspired you, I would love to hear. Okay, here we go. Pitches that really inspired you. I see mental health, sports for women, refresh and self-care app. Awesome. Sustainable fashion. I actually got to listen to that pitch. Very excited for that one. Environmental racism. Somebody said they loved the new episode of Techsetters. Thank you. We'll get to that. And also, as you know, you're going to hear shortly from Sam and Jenny, the I guess leaders of Techsetters and Techsetters themselves. They're going to be interviewing Catie, who you'll hear from shortly. Okay, more pitches that you're inspired by. Climate change mitigation, a mental health platform for women, emergency services. Amazing. So cool. Wow, it goes on and on. Mindfulness, environmental social media, mental health and volunteering, fast fashion awareness. Incredible. Epilepsy health, sustainability. I mean, it's so inspiring to hear what you guys are working on and what you are hearing and cheering your peers on for working on. Okay, so we're gonna actually get a chance to hear from some of the IAs to talk about some of the pitches. But before that, I have been hearing that you guys, not just hearing, but also seeing these crazy themes going on behind you in your Zoom backgrounds, which I love and I have so many questions about. I'm hearing that Matt and Chelsea's camp is going with a classic On Wednesday We Wear Pink. Love it. Let's see how much. I see a lot of pink happening here. Kennedy, I like your pink. Love it. And okay, what else do we have? We have, oh, and I've been hearing that, what else? Oh, favorite TV show day. Who's doing favorite TV show day? Let's see. Slack, or not Slack, I guess, just chat in what favorite TV show. Oh, Miami's doing favorite TV show. Miami, I'm sorry, did I forget to shout out Miami? Okay, Miami girls, sorry about that. Yes, Corey and Ian's camp are doing favorite TV show day. Okay, cool. Well, that explains some more themes that I'm seeing. And then has anybody dressed up today? I see some pink cowgirl hats. Kiara. Yeah, love it. I love it. Okay, well, you guys are amazing. And even if we're all just, together in camp on Zoom, I love that you still bring so much energy and enthusiasm and make it fun. And that's what it's all about. And it just makes me so happy to see that you're clearly doing that. So keep it up. And okay, as I said, I want to hear some more about these projects. So I want to pass it over to the IAs to share a highlight from each camp. IAs, ladies, who wants to kick it off?
I can start us off. Hi, Carly. Hi, everyone. So my camp has been an absolute joy. Our chat is just about as active as this one with like 500 people in it at all times, which is like my favorite thing. We are also on the theme with Mean Girls, Wednesdays We Wear Pink. And I would say a highlight is creating just as powerful of a community as we would have in like a real life setting.
I love that, and I can feel that. I agree. Just seeing this chat blow up and the kind of support among one another, it's awesome.
I can go next. I'm Sammy, and I'm from Brandy and Bethany's camp. Today we are When I Grow Up Wednesday, so dress as your career goal. Our camp name is Camp Codefidential, with a K, of course. And some of our favorite things have been discussing culture of tech. We got really into that and had the most like eye-opening, amazing, I mean, I almost cried. So the girls are just amazing people learning so much. And I think our favorite theme day has been Beach Day because the majority of us are from Florida. And our favorite brain break, which you all should try, is Scribble.io. It's like a virtual Pictionary and it is so fun. We get kind of competitive, but good-hearted, of course. And yeah, that's our camp. We're loving every minute of it.
I love it. Sammy, first of all, it's so good to see you. It makes me so happy. Do you have a New York background?
I do, because I need to stay in the city, of course, when I grow
up. That's right. That's right. Got to represent. Well, I love that your scholars are getting really engaged in the conversation around culture of tech. And that's a really important conversation that I'm so glad that we at Kode with Klossy can help facilitate, and that you guys are kind of coming together to share your thoughts and perspectives around, because it's a really big part of why Kode with Klossy exists and what we're really aiming to do to change the landscape of what the tech industry looks like. And there's, a lot of dynamics to it. And part of why we really, part of why I think the speaker series are so important too, is for you guys to really hear from so many people who are in the industry and experiencing things throughout their career that they've learned from, or hardships that they've faced, you know, and kind of sharing those stories is so important. And also that's part of why we started Techsetters too, to really bring light to those stories. And I'm really glad you guys are engaging in those conversations. Awesome.
I could go next. I'm Victoria, and I represent Matt and Chelsea's camp called the Array of Sunshine, the array being ARRAY. And so the way we came up with that is every time we have a scholar present their awesome work, we do this gesture. And it's so pretty to see everyone in gallery view make that gesture after someone presents, and it's like a sparkly sunshine. So we always have a lot of fun in our brain breaks, obviously, but one that definitely gets everyone excited is a group scavenger hunt. And we list like 20 most random items in the house for them to just run around and get them as quickly as possible. And we include things like a blade of grass or like a glass of rainwater to get them to just step outside of their house and grab it. So yeah, I think our camp is just amazing at performing their best, not only in coding, but also during break breaks. We get so competitive, so into it. So it's a blast.
That's awesome. First of all, I joined for your pitch party earlier this week, and I saw lots of this, and I thought it was awesome. I didn't totally understand it, but now I get it. That's awesome. And Array, very clever. And we haven't even talked about brain breaks. Can I see a sign of hands? I love that you guys are getting into brain breaks and getting creative with your brain breaks. That sounds like so much fun. I also heard, did you guys have a epic game of bingo? Was that in Matt and Chelsea's camp? Or maybe Matt and Chelsea's camp, I heard that you guys did One Direction, major dancing moment to One Direction. And then, okay, who did, it was Roshana and Cannon's camp did an epic game of bingo. Can I see a show of hands? Okay, well, you guys have to share some of these games. That sounds so fun. And then, apparently in the bingo, apparently one of the titles was Another Scholar Who Inspires You. I mean, that's amazing. You guys, I love it. I love that you're making your own brain breaks. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Thank you for sharing that, Victoria. Who's next?
I can go next. Hi, everyone. Hi, Carly. I'm Zoe. I am from Colin and Amanda's camp, and we are called the Well-Seasoned Baby Seal Milk Camp, sprung from a bunch of lovely inside jokes that have happened during brain breaks. And at this time, our favorite brain break to do is would you rather questions in breakout rooms, getting as weird as possible, stripping down any discomfort, and getting to know each other has been incredible.
That's amazing. That name is maybe you deserve an award for how original that name is. I don't think we've ever had a camp even close to that original of a name. That's pretty awesome. And Zoe, it's so good to see you. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that you guys are focusing on that, kind of getting out of your inhibitions or getting out of your comfort zone, which is also a part of camp. And, even though we are in a virtual setting this summer, I think it's such an important part of the experience because, learning these skills, learning to code can be uncomfortable. It's challenging, but I love that you guys are kind of taking time to have those bonding experiences. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Zoe.
I can go next. I'm Chriselle. I'm from Corey and Ayan's class. Our spirit day for the theme for our spirit day today is favorite TV show. And I think the discussion about culture of tech is one of the highlights of our camp. All of the scholars share their own experiences whenever we get together after breakout rooms. And one comment that really struck the most for us, like teachers and IAs, would be from Sophia, and she said, if this were an even gendered project, guys would ask us to take the lead on CSS and design and take JavaScript for themselves. And we thought that this was very insightful and just a mature way of viewing the gender gap in tech. And we did a Spotify challenge just like last week and a while ago in the morning, and it has been like so competitive. The chat was on fire and everybody was just having a joy. And yesterday we did the TikTok challenge, the video of you and Addison Ray, we did that and everybody was so much having fun, and I saw some of the scholars were like really dancing to it, so that was great.
That's awesome. Chriselle, thank you for sharing that. I'm so excited to hear more about the Spotify challenge. I love that you guys are getting so competitive around it. And I'll just say on the Addison, the TikTok dance, I've never felt like more old and lame in my life than when we did that. So I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed that, because I felt like a total loser while doing it in my bedroom, like trying to learn a dance that I couldn't figure out. Meanwhile, Addison was so nice. And so anyway, I'm glad you guys did it. It's awesome.
I can go next. I'm from the Alyssa and Zoe camp. I'm Lauren, and we've just had a lot of fun really bonding. The second Culture of Tech session really allowed us all to bond because everyone started to share their experiences in tech and all of that. And so I think that really started helping us bond. And we also created a collaborative Spotify playlist at the beginning of camp. So everyone's been adding their favorite songs. And so every morning when we're waiting for everyone to come in, we always play our Spotify playlist, and it is a fire playlist. They all did a really, really good job. We also really enjoy doing Just Dance for our brain breaks. It gets them up, gets them moving, has a lot of fun. And so it's just been great getting to know all of them.
That's awesome. I will definitely be joining that Spotify playlist. I want to listen in on it. Awesome. Thanks, Lauren.
All right, I can go. Hi, I'm Nikki. I am from the Coding Kittens camp, and we got that name because our scholars were really obsessed over Ashanti, our instructor's cat, Mr. Grace, and that's how we started bonding, and so we came up with Coding Kittens. I think the top highlight from camp was when the girls pulled a prank on us yesterday, more like Olivia, one of our IAs. They took a picture of Olivia and photoshopped her face to look bald, and then they made everyone's background was that picture, and it was the funniest thing to see, and we really enjoyed seeing it. And then I think our favorite spirit day was probably, the impromptu background day. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think I heard about this on Instagram. I saw this, the bald Olivia prank. That's pretty hysterical. It's amazing because like you're kind of limited with like what sort of like pranks you could pull on Zoom, but that's a pretty good one. It's pretty awesome. Very clever. Thanks, Nikki.
I can go next. I'm Alana, and I am an IA for Natasha and Kiana's camp. And I think a highlight of our camp has been doing our daily meditations, which were recommended by Natasha. So bringing that Hawaiian Zen to our camp. And we've also just been having lots of fun in our breakout rooms and during culture and tech sessions. And during our spirit days, we had Spice Girls Day a few days ago, and now it's Hat Day. So we're really excited for the rest of camp.
That's awesome. I'm loving your cowgirl hat. Very chic. I see a number of them in this Zoom. Love it. Very fashionable, you guys. And the meditations, I'm so glad you guys are engaging with those and enjoying them. I think it's something that has been such a kind of gift to myself and in my life. And I'm not always the best at it. I don't do it every single day, but when I do it, it definitely changes the course of my day and helps with just overall stress. And so I highly recommend it for anyone who hasn't sort of given it a chance yet. It can be really, really powerful. I love that you're doing that, Alana. Thank you for sharing, and good to see you.
I can go next. Hi, Carly. I'm from Matt and Mackenzie's camp. Our official name is the Coding Crusaders. And I think that my favorite part of camp has really been the conversations that we've been able to have, especially with our culture of techs. We've had some really great conversations about the educational systems in the United States and what change we need to bring to those to make it a space where everybody is welcome and a space where everybody's story is taught equally. We've also had a lot of fun playing House Hunters, which is our multi-part series that we've created, which is kind of like a scavenger hunt, but we like to put our own twists on it. We put a Project Runway twist on it yesterday, and we let everybody show off like their prom dresses and things that they haven't gotten to wear. So thanks so much for the experience. I've loved it so much.
Thank you for sharing that, Madeline. Wow. I mean, that's something that I love. So many things of what you just said, the fact that you brought a Project Runway twist into your House Hunters game, but also sharing your prom dresses, for instance, my heart goes out to all of you who have not been able to have the normal experiences that you deserve, of just whether it be graduation or prom. You know, this is such a crazy moment in the world, and I am sincerely sorry for the ways that it has impacted your guys' high school experience, and it's not fair, but I just really love that you are, sharing and connecting in this kind of way, however we can. And you know what? When all of this is over, you're going to have an epic party to celebrate. I have no doubt we all need to have an epic party to celebrate. It's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Madeline.
So I can go next. It's okay. My name is Caroline, and I'm an IA from Dominique and Kong's camp, and our name is the Computer Girls with a K, of course. And it's actually pajama party day, so party in my flannel PJ top. But one of the best highlights from our camp probably came after the second Culture of Tech session. Like other IAs have said, our scholars really started to get out of their shells and bond over their experiences and struggles with computer science in their schools and empower one another, which was really inspiring to see. Also, we've had some pretty funny highlights as well. We love the song game as a brain break, and we're actually having our first ever riff off later today, which the scholars don't know, but that's in store. And we also get into many debates about the randomest things, like do dogs see cars as animals or not? What is the best plant-based milk? And whether or not oatmeal cookies are good or not. I believe they are, but other people disagree. So it's a very hot topic. Chats blow up. Everyone gets into it. So yeah.
That's awesome, Caroline. That makes me so happy. It makes me so happy to see so many amazing IA faces that I've gotten to spend time with in the past. So thank you for sharing that. I do see this chat blowing up about Webkins, about oatmeal cookies. It's awesome. It's really, really awesome. And pajama day, I swear, I feel like in like quarantine life, every day is pajama day, but I love that it's the theme today. It's awesome.
I can go next. Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm from Marty and Lucas's camp. We like to refer to ourselves as sponges. We like to do that because we just like to soak all the magic that is Code with Klossy, and the little sponge emoji has been like our mascot for the past week. And then I would say a highlight has been we also created a camp Spotify account, which we love. We have Culture of Tech was amazing for us. I think the girls just felt super connected, not only to the industry, but just to themselves. And I think they all felt super bonded together. So that was just an amazing thing to witness. And then our favorite brain break has definitely been just the dance party. I think we had that yesterday, and that was just awesome because it's just hard to sometimes sit for so long. So just to get up and dance, that was just super nice to do. So I think that's gonna be our new it brain break. But yeah, that's been awesome so far, and the girls absolutely love it.
That's amazing. I mean, Hannah, first of all, wherever you are in Napa with your background, I want to be there. I'm so jealous. That looks so relaxing. And this chat and these sponges, I never even realized there was a sponge emoji until this very moment. But that's amazing. And I love that metaphor of soaking everything up. And I think that's the approach to life that I identify with too. I'm always asking questions and learning and kind of taking advantage of opportunities to soak up information or experiences or learn from others. So I love that that is kind of the theme. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Hannah.
Yeah, so I think I'll be going next. So I'm Maggie, and I am an IA for Risu and Jessica's camp. And so our theme day today is School Spirit Day. So all of our own like schools and colleges. So my background's for my school. And so our like highlight of our camp, I would say, would be our Culture of Tech sessions, especially Culture of Tech #2. It was super awesome to see all of our scholars like practicing vulnerability and speaking their truth, which was really powerful. And it's also one of our favorite brain breaks has been the House Hunters also. And so like today when we were playing, we were all talking about how we were going to split this giant millions and millions of dollar house between all 40 of us and what we were going to do. So just lots of fun. And so it's been really awesome to see the girls connecting and having a great time. So yeah.
That's awesome. I love that plan. Can I be invited to that house when you buy it? And then also I love that is your theme of the day and your background, UC Dublin. Very, very cool. I hope, do you plan to start in the fall or are you already there now?
Yeah, so I'm already there now. So I'm going into my second year at
Awesome.
UCD in Ireland. Yeah, it's awesome.
That must be a really cool place to go to school. Very, very cool. Maggie, thank you for sharing.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Carly. My name's Fadia, and I am an IA for the Codevid Coders. And our incredible instructors are Abby and Taylor. And today we're all wearing our Codevid Klossy green. Yeah, and I think all the scholars have been so inspiring and have really been motivating me, but by far, I think my favorite activity and memory that we've had was yesterday when we had a talent show, and all the scholars showed off their hidden talents. One scholar sang a song she wrote, one scholar played the piano, a couple showed off their art, and it was just so inspiring, and I think we all got to know each other so much better, and it really brought all of us together, even in this like virtual setting, which was so amazing. And I have to say thank you so much, Carly, for coming. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of so many others that we're so lucky to be part of this amazing group of people.
Thank you so much for saying that. We are the lucky ones to be a part of this with you and to, we just create the space and it's on you to create the experience and what you take away from it. And, it would not be possible without the incredible instructors and incredible IAs. So, this is a group effort on behalf of everyone on this call. And I'm so glad that you guys are really maximizing this opportunity and makes me so happy. Thank you for sharing that, Fadia. And I love your Code with Klossy green. Very chic.
I can go next. Hi, Carly. I'm Faith. I'm from Rosh Hashanah Cannons Camp with a very famous bingo. So our theme today is Wednesdays We Wear Pink. And then I think the highlight of our camp would be just, like the virtual connection is also as strong as it would be if we met in real life. So there's that. I think the highlight for our week would be like the bingo, as you had mentioned. There were like funny ones that I just want to share. You're on mute, which is really funny. Another scholar inspires you. Someone is snacking, and then family members in the background. And this was like the hardest one. So someone moves to their bed would be like the hardest one to cross off, because I would see in the chat like, hey, did you move in your bed? Hey, you have a different background. Are you on your bed? So there was that. So that was like really funny. Our girls get along with each other so well, and we're all having fun.
That's amazing. Please let me join the next bingo game. That's awesome. I mean, this, you guys are creating a first ever for Code with Klossy, being able to be so, I don't know, kind of share like a part of your life, and your family and your home and your talents in a way that isn't always the case in camps in the past. So this is, you're setting new historic records for Code with Klossy experiences. So it's awesome. Thank you, Faith.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya and hello Carly. My name is Maya and I'm here to introduce the Coding Queens from Emily and Lucy's camp, spelled with 2 Ks of course. We have had an absolute blast this past week and a half and cannot believe it's almost over, but we're so excited for demo day. I was so hyped after our pitch party day. We have some amazing topics, lots of climate change, women's rights and advocacy, to even specifically sustainability within the LA area, which I think is super cool. And a couple of camp highlights from us definitely have to be all of the yoga videos. We were joking that we're turning into a yoga camp because we probably do one at least once a day, but it's super fun. And then of course our theme days as well. On Wednesdays we wear pink, so that's been super awesome. But I would say one of the best highlights as well is just the vulnerability from each of the scholars to be able to share code, not when it's perfect, is something that I really admire, especially kind of in a virtual setting. It takes a lot to ask for help and to really put yourself out there with something that's not perfect. And that's just been so inspiring for me, both as a computer scientist and a fellow Code with Klossy scholar. So I am just blown away by each and every one of the scholars in my camp and all of the camps. So thank you to everyone. And we are all just so excited to be a part of this stellar community. So we couldn't thank you enough.
Thank you, Maya. And the community is what it is because of each one of you and what you bring to it. So thank you. And I love what you said. First of all, I'm so silly. I can't believe I didn't wear pink today. Won't make that mistake again. But I love, what you were speaking to about vulnerability. And that is, again, part of like what we hope this space is for you guys, a safe space to come together, to learn something hard, but to do it together, to lean on one another, to learn from one another. And, I think that kind of just being vulnerable is an important part of life, and being able to do that with people that you trust. And, I love that this kind of connection has been facilitated in these camps. So it makes me so happy to hear that. And I agree with what you said, and Hannah spoke to this too, just about like exercise. We are all sitting on our computers all day, and it's just so important for your mental health and for your physical health to just like get up and move, even just have a 5-minute like dance party by yourself, to go for, a quick walk around your neighborhood, whatever you can do or need to do to just get your body moving is so important. So thank you, Maya. Okay, I think we have one more.
Yeah, so hi y'all, I'm Naina. I'm from Megan and Laura's camp, and I'm going to be rounding us out with some highlights about the groovy Flexbox Llama goddesses. And yes, we are still adding to that name. It'll probably be a paragraph by the end of camp. So today is Wednesdays, and hence we are wearing our pink. Some of our favorite brain breaks have been Scribble.io, as was mentioned, and pulling up Just Dance from YouTube and having a dance party. Another one that Megan introduced us to was a kilo break. And so we'll go outside and just observe for 5 minutes. And then we come back and talk about how the breeze felt and some of, like, if we saw leaves, if we saw people. And it was just really nice to have that break in nature and just kind of enjoy some time outside. Another highlight, as everyone was saying, is the Culture of Tech session, especially the second one. It was really amazing, and we started talking about kind of what it means to be a woman in STEM. And I think one of our scholars, Summer, she said it best. She said, everyone is just trying to put me into a box. But if I want to be a cube-shaped watermelon, I'm going to be a cube-shaped watermelon. And in that moment, I think a lot of our scholars realized that they weren't alone in how they were feeling in their computer science classes and advanced math classes as one of 2 girls. And I think that really brought us together. So that was a really amazing experience. So thank you for allowing that to happen.
That makes me so happy to hear. And yes, if you want to be a cube-shaped watermelon, you go ahead and be a cube-shaped watermelon. I think that that I've never heard that expression or put that way before, but it's a great way to put it. And just no one can put you in a box. Every one of us in this community is different in so many ways, but I think we share this kind of passion and interest around this space, and we're all, I think this community is so much richer for how different we all are. And I think you just have to be authentically you and confidently yourself, and lean into those things that make you different. And don't let anyone try and define you or put you in, a box and think they have you figured out. Be you. And I love this name. Is it Groovy Flexbox Llama Goddesses? Another contender for the most original name this summer. It's pretty awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. I mean, I'm so inspired. I continue to be so impressed with all that you guys are doing, and hearing these stories about just experiences within each of your camps just makes me so happy. So thank you for sharing them. And I would think we're running a little over, so I'm going to pass the torch to the one and only Sam and Jenny, the Techsetters, our Techsetters, who are, if you haven't already had a chance to listen to, I highly recommend. There's now 2 episodes out on the Techsetters podcast, and they are amazing, and they are they're sponges like us, and so curious and passionate, Sam and Jenny, and they lead these conversations like one we're about to listen to right now that really bring so much light to amazing people and their stories. And I'm so glad that we have them here today to lead this next conversation, and I'm going to pass it over to them. But before I do so, I just want to say thank you all so much for being a part of this camp this summer. We are so grateful to have you, and good luck with everything ahead. So bye, guys.
Thank you so much, Carly. And I think this is the first talk we're doing since we've actually launched the podcast, which is so exciting. And Jenny and I are incredibly lucky because Jenny is incredibly interesting and incredibly powerful, but we are lucky enough to have the opportunity to interview such inspirational people like Carly, for example, or our first episode, which is with someone named Joyble Amwini. And today we have an amazing guest for all of you, and I'm gonna let Jenny introduce her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone who also listened to the podcast. It means the world to us, and we're always open to hear feedback and want to make it better. But today we have a super special guest. Her name is Catie. She is currently a PhD candidate in the mechanical engineering department at Stanford. She previously graduated with high honors from Berkeley and was a visiting student at Oxford. But beyond just being an engineer, she's also a dancer, and she's danced with the Metropolitan Opera Ballet. She's performed in off-Broadway shows. She teaches robots how to dance. And we have her today because she's also an IFTHN ambassador, and IFTHN is the amazing STEM-focused nonprofit that made Techsetters possible. So thank you, Catie, for joining us today.
Good morning. I'm so blown away by all of your introductions. This is the most honorable group of women and girls that I've been around in such a long time. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, our pleasure, truly. I mean, and also Jenny and I, this is our favorite topic. We're always so blown away by the Kode with Klossy scholars just because they're so incredibly passionate and supportive of one another. And it's just one of those environments that, especially going to college and studying STEM, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the dream type of learning and growing environment. So I'd love to just hear a bit about, your experience and how you first got interested in engineering.
Well, thank you for that quick introduction. I call myself a robot choreographer, and I think you guys set that up really nicely because it is true that my work, my research and my artistic work is all about how do we make robots move more fluidly so that they are accepted and empowering for people rather than scary. And I think my background in dance and theater gives me a really unique point of view to address that problem. Because in dance and theater, as we all know, it's all about changing emotions and how do you alter someone's point of view through some of these really stunning artistic tools. But you asked me how I first got interested in STEM, and I want to say that it's so incredible to have this community that you guys have, because I can point to, unfortunately, a couple of times in my middle school and high school kind of STEM career when I felt really out of place, or I was told that I was out of place. And it took having a community of other women to sort of lift me up and encourage me, oh no, you belong here, you can do this, to pursue a career in STEM. So I'd studied like math and biology and done sort of all the standard high school, middle school science, technology, engineering, and math classes. But in college, I didn't actually study engineering. And I feel like that's really important to share, because I hear from so many women and even girls who are in 9th or 10th grade that are like, I'm too old now, I can't. And I'm thinking, what? Oh my gosh, I've done so many other things since coming back and joining a graduate program. So after I graduated from college, where I did not study engineering, I should stress that again, I did not study engineering in college. I wound up moving to New York City, and I was sort of like balancing this dual career where I was dancing and choreographing and had my own dance company, but I was also working full time and then also designing websites, and I felt like I was living in these two different universes. And when I started using robots really in my performances and my artistic pieces is when I realized that I could bring both of my interests together if I could use robots in a theatrical context. And that's what brought me to grad school. So I'm now in my 3rd year at Stanford. I finished my master's about 6 months ago, and I'm deep into the PhD, which we can talk about is a little less exciting, but I'm deep into the PhD. And I have to say that it's provided this incredible space for me to explore and experiment the same way that I was in the dance studio, now I do in the lab.
That's amazing. And so as you were thinking about maybe going back to school, especially in engineering, as you mentioned, not as an engineering undergrad, what did that feel like? Were you scared? How did you overcome that internal dialogue? Were there specific maybe mentors or peers along the way that really inspired you and encouraged you to make that leap?
Scared is a great word. I was intimidated. I was fearful of being embarrassed and fearful of being underqualified, I think was a big one. I also was very confused. So in order to make a leap across the chasm, there's no roadmap, right? By definition, there is no obvious set of things that you need to do to go from being a dancer in New York to being a PhD student at Stanford in mechanical engineering. Like there are very few steps that are obvious along the way, right? It's not like going from 7th to 8th grade. And so when I thought about that transition at the time that I was living in New York and dancing, I was also doing an artist residency at a robotics lab, at the Robotics Automation and Dance Lab at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And I was the artist in residence there at that time. So my responsibilities were literally to teach movement class to all of the engineers in the lab and to create artwork with these robots, which if you're going to make artwork with something, you need to know how to use it, whether it's painting or drawing with code or creating really beautiful animations. And so I actually felt like I was fairly literate in how to control some of these robots, but that all of my education had come from an art making trajectory, not from I'm in class and I'm learning how to use these robots. And so I had that background. Then I knew I had to bridge this big chasm. So I took a bunch of classes on MIT OpenCourseWare. And I also took a bunch of classes at Code Academy, and I really set a schedule for myself. I said, I'm gonna be in class from 4 to 8 p.m., 4 days a week for the next however many months. And then I reached out to a lot of people. So I said, I'm interested in doing robotics from a more formal point of view. What are the open problems in robotics? What are the questions that people haven't solved yet? And a lot of these experts who thankfully got back to me were saying things that I felt like I could help with. So they were saying things like, we don't have robots that are really easy to navigate around people. People are still pretty freaked out around robots. We have some open problems about manipulation and kind of like swarm robotics. And so I was hearing a lot that I felt like I could fill in some of those gaps if I could get my education and get the tools and start to research the things I wanted to. So between the classes, between some of the self-taught learning, and between all these conversations I had, I felt like I had a pretty clear point of view about why I wanted to go to grad school. And if I could be very clear about that point of view in my interviews, my essays, my applications, then I think the argument was pretty strong for me to be there. But I should remark, Jenny, that it doesn't mean that I didn't get a lot of skeptical faces along the way. I think in even one of my grad school interviews, someone was like, you haven't taken fluid dynamics. How will you ever survive? And that was hard to hear, right? Because you do have some of that self-doubt and you're wondering, do I belong here if I haven't taken these engineering courses? And I think ultimately it was about figuring out how to make my own little ramshackle bridge across these two ends of the canyon, and here I am now.
I really love what you said also just about how your art and choreography experience gave you this skill of just learning how to learn, because I feel like what you were saying resonated with me and is sort of what I wish I was better at, is having that like just knowing that it takes time to learn things, but you have the tools at your disposal to know, like once you understand how to like use these different materials or use these different formulas or use these different individual like dance moves in different counts, you're able to put things together. But until you have those things, it can seem like, oh my God, what that person is doing seems just completely impossible. So I want to know, what was there a first time that you came to that realization, or was there an early time where you had that experience of first seeing something that looked completely impossible and then having that breakthrough, or like being able to put some time in to understand?
I'm really glad you brought that up, Samantha, because I want to say two things about that, and then I will tell a little story. We'll go into story time. The first thing is that everything worth doing in life is hard. Whether it's becoming a dancer, whether it's becoming a great chef, whether it's being a good friend. Actually, all of those things take work. And there's this perception that some of those things take more work than others, which is not true. I love to say that when I got to Stanford, so many of my peers knew things that I didn't know. And that's fine, because this is the second point I guess I want to make. There's nothing wrong with you if you don't know something. It just means you haven't learned it yet. And I watched all these talks from Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist at Stanford. She's a very decorated professor, with this growth mindset idea that the amount of knowledge that we have is not fixed, right? And I think if I had listened to all of the devils on my shoulders, or the kind of the bad things in my brain that were like, you've taken a long time out of school, all these people are steps ahead of you, like it would have just become too overwhelming. And I had to follow my gut and say, like, this is hard, but I'm going to do it. And when something is challenging, I actually see that as a huge opportunity to grow and change and be different. It's like we're all experiencing this COVID-19 pandemic where we sort of wake up and maybe, at least for me, I'm in my same space kind of all day long. And it's like, wow, this is a little bit of a metaphor for life, is we love to be out in the world and experiencing different things and having different exposures. And that can be scary. And so I think challenges are an opportunity to sort of embrace difficulty towards new frontiers. And so if there was a moment, and now I'll do story time. So I think one of the questions that I was thinking about was like, well, what was some of the first couple of things that I made that were really hard for me to make, but I felt very inspired by, right? Like what would sort of fall into that category? And when I had this residency a number of years ago, I was kind of like gnawing at this idea of how in the internet, we're all talking to each other through these light boxes. But actually what's happening is that these little tiny rays of light are like zipping underground through these fiber optic cables. And like, that's kind of crazy, is that we're all part of this magical experience, but it feels like very static and stoic and perfunctory. And I was like, how do I create that? How do I make that happen for people? And one day it was like, I actually really woke up and just had this idea of how I was going to realize that sensation in an installation I was making. And when I finally saw it come together and someone came and participated in it, and they were like wearing this little VR headset at the very end, and they took the headset off and they were just like smiling and laughing and looking at me. And I was like, I made that, like, wow, you know, and this person's having this whole crazy experience. And then we talked about it, and it felt like this is what is so empowering about doing this is hard. It's hard to come up with interesting ideas, and it's hard to make them happen. And when you do, seeing how they affect other people, how they give them life and empathy and illuminate them in new ways, I was like, wow, I'm hooked. I got to do this all the time.
What an amazing, fulfilling feeling to see that you created something and see that it brought joy to someone else. And I would love to dig in a bit more on your research now as a grad student. And what are you working on? What are you creating? Do you have an idea for what your thesis will be?
Great questions. And I should also mention, so I'm an IFTHN ambassador, AAAS IFTHN ambassador, which not only has been a wonderful supporter of Techsetters, but they also support and sponsor something called Mission Unstoppable, which maybe some of you guys have seen. It's actually
Tell us more.
Oh, okay. It's on CBS Saturday mornings, and it's hosted by Miranda Cosgrove. And on this show, it gives you a really fun opportunity to see many different women in STEM working in their environment. And usually it's about a certain challenge, or maybe they do a highlight of what they're working on. And the reason I call that out is because I will give the best description that I can, but what's fun about watching that episode is you can see actually the lab, and you can see some of the robots that I'm working with. And it will kind of put a robot face to a name. So some of my research at the start of Stanford was really looking at if you have a robot that's moving in free space. So let's pretend that maybe we're in a kitchen and there's a robot in your kitchen, and that robot is moving around and it's helping you with some tasks, and you want to tell the robot to stop. But maybe it's really loud, or there's no buttons on the robot, or that's not your preferred way of communicating, and you just want to touch the robot and get it to stop moving. I was looking at what are the attributes of that touch that convey different things. So maybe if you press the robot really fast and hard, that would be stop, robot, stop moving. Or if you sort of slowly move in the same trajectory as the robot, maybe that's slow down a little bit. So the first thing that I did when I got here was really study how do people come into contact with robots. And the parallel to that for me is something like ballroom dancing, where if anyone's ever done ballroom dancing, or you've tried to scare your friend by coming and tapping them on the shoulder, we know that the way we contact one another has meaning and has intention. How does that translate to robots? That was sort of the first question I was interested in. Now, what I'm really interested in is looking at, so we are covered in this big organ, it's called skin. It's like one of your 5 senses, but it's very intriguing as a general, and we don't know very much about the skin and how we sense touch and haptic information. And so now what I'm doing is I'm studying, can we make some wearable haptic devices, which you guys, I would argue, probably a lot of you already have haptic devices, whether it's a smartphone or an Apple Watch, something that gives you like a little buzz or a ding. Now I'm looking at, can we wear different kinds of haptic devices so that we get feedback, so our hands or our fingers or our arms or something buzz, or they shear or they wiggle. Can we get haptic feedback when we teleoperate robots in order to do more interesting things with them? So when we're teleoperating robots, it's basically when you're controlling a robot over a long distance, whether it's 3 feet or 3,000 miles. People have done robot teleoperated surgery. And how would like a full body distributed wearable haptic suit make that experience a little bit richer, more compelling, maybe more effective from a performance point of view? But like every PhD student, it's always a work in progress, and sometimes the target is moving. And so this is where I'm at now, and it might change in the future.
That's so, just as you were saying about hack tips, I was like looking at my closet because I have this Levi's jacket. I don't know if you've seen the Levi's jacquard jacket that's haptic. That it's like the sleeve has the haptics in it, and like when you swipe it or touch it, it triggers different events on your phone via Bluetooth. And then I also have the Google YSL backpack that has the haptic in the book bag strap. And it's just the coolest thing ever because I think we're all so addicted to like our screens and our phones, and like to have like another sense to notify us of something is just, it allows you to be like hands and eyes free, but second, it like allows us to be more in touch with our other senses. And so I think it's so cool that you're doing that. And do you see a world where you'll take your research and try to commercialize it? Or do you think this is more of like an academic interest and you have a specific goal of being published in a certain paper or at a certain conference?
Well, you need to ping me the Levi's jacket afterwards. That is so compelling. I think, well, that asks for me possibly a broader question, which is how do you see the world, or how do you imagine that work like this could fit into a broader thesis about the way that humans should be in our environment. So certainly publishing, one of the wonderful benefits of being part of an academic community is you get to share what you're doing all the time. And it's this beautiful open forum where you can exchange ideas, and the peer-reviewed model is very robust for that. So writing journal papers, writing conference papers, being out in the universe and sharing your ideas, having people critique them, having people support them, having people tag on to them in different ways. So certainly publishing, being a part of the academic community, all of those things I feel very committed to doing. I think the commercial question about haptics is a really good one. And you bring up this point of oversaturation with our screens. We, especially me as a dancer, I'm like, the world is three-dimensional. I have 360 degrees of existence to play with, and all of these levels, and my front space, my back space, and all these different ways of communicating with my body. Why do I get relegated down to this? It's like, that doesn't feel like a fabulous way of being in the world. The way that I want to be in the world is sort of this omnipresent, broad, extending, allowing myself to be fully alive in this body, and not necessarily just like taps. You guys all know ones and zeros, like, okay, fine, but there's a lot in the middle. So I think some commercial applications certainly exist out there for haptics, aside from watches and smartphones. My advisor worked on a really interesting project when she was a grad student, when she was a grad student at Stanford, but still studying haptics, where she was working on projects in cars and like giving different kinds of haptic feedback through this little joystick that you operate in order to switch gears. And so I would say yes, and commercial, academic, and really also learning from other fields too. I mean, we have so many different ways of sensing and bringing those sensory information channels together. It's something that I hope to continue to explore.
Yeah, when you were talking about that, one thing that came to mind is my mom is like a physical therapist for little kids, and she works with a lot of kids with sensory differences. And I think basically, like while you were talking, I've always thought about haptics in terms of breaking down, for a robot to touch, what does that mean? Or what does it mean to simulate what it feels to be touched on skin? There's not just pressure or the texture, but maybe there's also some temperature. And for people that maybe have different sensitivities to things like temperature, volume levels, textures, I feel like when you start trying to break that down, and especially when you're trying to build a robot or some piece of technology that can simulate those behaviors, it's almost like a form of empathy building in some ways, to be like, okay, cool, like I can understand how if you don't have this piece, or this piece works differently for you, or if I didn't add this context. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. I want to understand, like, have you seen, like, are there any situations that you've like been trying to program something for the robot and you've had one of these, oh my gosh, like I've never thought about needing to explicitly write that this is something I need to tell the robot to do, like a step or something?
That's a great question. And I think when you described empathy building at the beginning, that's super relevant right now in this COVID-19 era. So for example, a lot of my friends still live in New York City. Some of them who are single, they'll tell me, or who live alone, they're like, I have not touched another person in 4 months or 5 months. And we forget how that feeling of giving your close friend a really big hug, or if someone's upset, sort of like holding them on the shoulder, or even being able to kind of shake someone's hand and just acknowledge them fully. We forget that touch is actually a really major way that we communicate with other people, that we create community with other people. And then the point that you're also asking about, has there ever been a moment where you were like, wow, this is something I didn't realize I had to program? So Sergey Levine, who's a professor at UC Berkeley, he says this really beautifully of like, for robots, the things that we think are hard are easy, and the things that we think are easy, they think are hard. So one great example is being able to move through a crowd, right? I lived in New York for 6 years. I would walk through Times Square, and there's this, if you know what you're doing, there's a fairly obvious way to sort of weave through many, and you're anticipating the velocity that they're all moving towards you. You can sort of tell the angling of people's bodies, exactly where they're going to wind up in space. If someone's paused, you can sort of tell what it is that they're looking at, you know, and so you know that if you move around them, they'll be able to see you or not see you. And it's all of these implicit cues that we learn from the time that we're born, right, of how to be around other people and how to move through them and how to read the cues that they're giving us for that to be legible. And that's actually something that's really challenging for robots to do. So when I was first designing this experiment where this robot arm is moving around your kitchen and you're trying to come into contact with it, I realized like, oh, the person can only contact the robot. Let's pretend that I'm a robot arm. The person can only contact the robot from here down because we don't have the sensors that we need for the person to be able to contact the robot up here. What in the world is that about? Aren't robots just equipped with every type of sensor you could ever imagine? Aren't they like fully able to detect touch in all of these different dimensions? And I was like, no, actually, these sensors are expensive and they're not super easy to program. And here I am thinking like, well, I'm covered in skin. Like I can feel touch, you know, in most of the parts of my body because I've got some nice like nerve endings in all my muscles and everything. And so I think that, Samantha, was a moment for me when I realized like, oh, we think of robots as these fully autonomous, completely capable, you know, mystical almost machines, but they have a lot of limitations. And if you know what those limitations are, number one, it can illuminate how amazing people are and how our hundreds of thousands of years of evolution have sort of set us up to really exist and be effective in the world. But number two, it also makes you realize, okay, robots have limitations. Where's there room to grow? What can I do with those limitations? How can I not only improve them, but take what is fairly limited and make something interesting with it?
Yeah, I mean, I remember taking a humanoid robotics class where we were essentially trying to build, it was like building a robot that could go through an obstacle course on its own. And I remember one of the moments that like, I was like, oh my God, no wonder this doesn't work, was because the sensors that we had on the front were like only like they didn't span. And so you had to turn the robot like 90 degrees in order for it to know if there was a wall there. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen like a Roomba or something go around. It like very much tries to just like hit into things and be like, oops, nope, turn. Oops, nope, turn. And just sort of like tries to see. And it's a little bit smarter because it'll maybe try to push on things and see if it's movable. But it is, I love that phrasing of just, you know, the things that we think are most easy are hard for robots, and things that we think are really hard, if we're like, hey, you know, just keep moving straight for, I don't know, however many hours, or just go straight up this hill for however many hours. I mean, if you have enough battery, you know, you're good. It's not going to make any difference. Yeah. So I love that answer.
And we're getting a bunch of questions about your experience as a dancer. And personally, I'm very curious because my dream growing up was I wanted to be a ballet dancer, and I clearly never made it. So I would love to just hear more about how you were able to balance that type of, you mentioned like a dual life almost, like having these different interests, but then being able to combine them. And actually, your story really reminds me of one of the guests we have on this season of Techsetters, Carol Riley. She's also from Stanford, so I'm sure you may have crossed paths at some point, but she was saying how at the time that she was a grad student, she was also a part-time model, and like she almost had to like hide this other side of her from her lab mates because she didn't want people to think of her differently. So love to just hear your experience.
I think when I signed on to this call, someone was introducing this idea of a cubed watermelon, that you can really bring your whole self to the table and be who you are and be unapologetic about it. I think that was, that theme really resonated with me when I first signed on. And I'm sorry, I forget the name of the person who was sharing it, but that was definitely resonant for me. Balancing two things that you're interested in. I think there are so many schools of thought that are be really good at this one thing and never let it go. One of my very best friends in the whole world, her name's Annie Hart. She's actually how I met my fiance. Annie played cello. She's an incredible cellist. She went to Juilliard. We lived together for a couple of years, utterly talented musician. And she realized, you know what? I've played the cello for so long. It's not my primary passion though. I really want to be a doctor. And she had a similar experience. How in the world am I going to go to med school? You know, I've got 4 years of contemporary or conservatory arts training in music, and I don't know organic chemistry. I don't know biology. How in the world am I going to do this? And actually the summer she decided to go, we were living together because I was interning at Google, which maybe I'll tag on to this in some way, because I was interning at Google, and so Annie and I kind of set out, how are we going to get you to become a doctor? So she goes to interview for medical school. Turns out that the person who's interviewing her is a bass player and also was a classically trained musician, and said, musicians are great doctors. They have incredible dexterity in their hands and fingers. They know how to think in multidimensional ways. They also recognize the symbolism and the unity that comes from working in a group. Why don't we see more musicians that are doctors? And seeing her go through that experience, which happened maybe 3 or 4 years before I decided to go back to graduate school, I realized we have these very somewhat artificial barriers in between all of these schools of thought, right? And we can either reinforce those barriers and be like, oh, sorry, I can't talk to you about, you know, your interest in improv theater because, you know, I'm a physicist and like improv theater has nothing to do with physics. That's like one way of approaching our differences. I think the other way is sort of to say, oh, you know, in physics, we have to think a lot about complex problems and ask questions to even know which questions to ask before we can approach the complex problem. And improv theater artists are all like, oh, well, we have the most fun when someone asks a really odd. And so I think it's about finding where those intersections exist and like leaning into them, because it's also what makes you pretty different in your field. So for example, in my field, there's 35 PhD students that are my age in mechanical engineering. They're all incredible. They inspire me so much. They come from really interesting and broad backgrounds. And I'm kind of the only dancer, right? So I have to ask myself, like, well, what can I bring to the table as part of this group with my dance background that gives me some uniqueness, some broader point of view that will allow me to be a difference maker in this community? Because if you start from this point of view of like, I'm trying to do these two things and they don't really go together and they're conflicting, and so I should just forget about one of them and never do it again, you're sort of shutting off this whole part of yourself that needs to be there, needs to be at the table. And I think so much too about like when I first got to Stanford, and it was this idea of like, oh my gosh, I need to hide from everyone. Like I have to keep it, like I can't tell anyone this is that I used to dance. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, this is part of the reason that I'm actually here. Like all of these professors are reaching out to me and saying, oh, Catie, like, please, can you know, we would love to understand your point of view a little more. Like, please bring that into your work. please remark upon it when you're doing your research and when you're building experiments. And I was like, why am I trying to keep these two things divorced when for me they go together so beautifully? Maybe I can help them go together beautifully for other people. And then I think like maybe a couple good examples of times when I've done that and I feel like it's been successful. It's like one of the projects I was working on before I got to Stanford was with this enormous industrial robot, which you guys have probably seen like working on cars. So it's an ABB robot and they're 11 feet high and they work on these big manufacturing lines. And I was using this robot in a performative context, like trying to spin it into an animation that I could dance with and like extracting all these joint angles in order to build different trajectories in space. And I was feeling really inspired by this robot. And when I came to Stanford with that particular project, they were like, well, we don't have a lot of industrial robots here, but we do have these other kinds of robots that people might be intimidated by. And we want to study why that is, or we want to unpack that fear a little bit more. And I felt like because I had this other experience of dancing with them, I could help unpack that fear. So inspired by my friend Annie, feeling like I would be very internally conflicted if I didn't have both of these parts of myself at the table. And then also realizing that if the right people, if you're surrounded by the right people, they will want to see that side of you, right? The people who try to put you into a box, to like stick you in a corner, to tell you that you shouldn't be performing on stages at the same time, maybe it's because they're a little narrow-minded, or maybe it's because they just haven't seen someone who's done what you've done before and so they can't picture it.
I really love that. So I want everyone to start, I know the chat has been so incredible. I want everyone to start thinking of their questions and sending some questions into the chat. But I just wanted to say what you were just talking about seems so relevant because I've been having conversations a lot recently with intern managers. And I think one of the interesting challenges is like, if you have learned something in a certain way, you're going to try to teach it the same way that you learned it. And teaching people to rethink and try to learn things or ask questions or try to like build empathy and understand what context you're coming from is so important. Like being able to say, okay, instead of just saying object-oriented programming is just like around an object, but trying to explain, okay, like what is structured data and why would that ever be in the form of an object? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love that. So thank you for sharing your experience because I think we all need to hear that more. Okay, let's see. What are some questions? Jenny, did you happen to see any coming in? Yeah, okay, what is this? Oh, what did you study in college?
Oh, good question. So what did I major in? So I was a double major in business and dance.
Oh, amazing. You majored in dance? So did you do a thesis dance performance? A few of my friends did that were dance majors. Did you do
So I took my second semester of my senior year, I took advanced choreography with Joe Good, who's a choreographer in San Francisco. And I had 3 dancers in my piece and it was like really angsty because I think I was at the end of college and I was like, oh, my life is so angsty. So yes, and it was probably like a 12 or 14 minute piece.
Amazing.
How did you contact experts when you were thinking about crossing the chasm?
I'm so glad you asked this question. So I want to address that when I was a freshman in college, I really had no idea what I wanted to study. And I felt very intimidated by being at UC Berkeley, where there were like 12,000 students in my class. And at the time I kind of followed, my mom was a finance director. And so I felt very inspired by what she was doing. And that's what sort of led me into this business route. But at UC Berkeley has a fairly good alumni network. I literally looked someone up who was like a vice president at Yahoo, which was not a defunct, or I don't know if I would call it defunct. Definitely not. It's in its own lane now, but it was a bigger tech company then than it is now. And I sent her a cold email and I was like, I'm a freshman at UC Berkeley and my name's Katie. I read about you on Google. Please, will you meet with me? And she said yes. And I drove to, I guess I can't remember exactly where their offices were, maybe Mountain View. My stepdad drove me there because I didn't have a car. And I just met with her for an hour and a half. And she was happy to talk to me about her life and the decisions that she made to get to where she was. And I think that idea of just cold emailing, like finding someone on LinkedIn or in your alumni network, or even asking whether it's your parents or their friends or some of these other campers that you're working with at Kode with Klossy, or other people who are here, and being like, just putting the seed out in the universe. Hey, I'm interested in robotics. I'm interested in natural language processing. Like, I know that's sort of a vague thing. Can you introduce me to anyone who will talk to me about it? And I went on a bunch of informational interviews like that. So in terms of finding experts, I think like alumni network, whoever's in your community, reach out to your Kode with Klossy, like fellow campers. And then also, don't be afraid to find people on LinkedIn. You know, sometimes I would find someone in an article on Wired that I was really inspired by, and go to their website and send them an email, and they would write me back. And it was like, okay, awesome. So I think like, no one will ever fault you, or at least if they do, maybe it's not a nice thing. But I think no one will ever fault you for getting an email that says, I admire you. I think what you're doing is interesting. Please, can you share more with me about it?
Yeah, I think that's so true. Jenny and I constantly remind each other that, first of all, people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
People always appreciate, you know, especially when you're coming in with an intention and you're saying like, hey, I'm here to learn. I think that people really, really appreciate that. So let me see. Okay, there's so many incredible questions. So Anna asked, how do you see the industry changing in the near future towards breaking down these imaginary barriers that are set for us regarding to like arts and STEM not mixing?
That's an excellent question, and something I think a lot about, because I'm a person who's in a academic community that really has some of this bifurcation and has it built in really since the beginning. And it's something I think a lot about on the commercial side as well. You know, some of these companies that the big four, like Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook. And I think some of that change is happening already. So for example, Google ATAP and the MIT Media Lab, and sort of like some of these spaces that are already embracing interdisciplinariness as like one of their core values. And then I think about so many people who are innovators, like Madeline Gannon, who got her PhD at CMU and is an artist, but also works in a research capacity, or even Stellark, who's in his 70s and has been doing a lot of like art and technology stretching of pushing the boundaries for so long. And so I think there are so many people that are out there that are doing this work. It's whether or not those people kind of become a part of the institution as well, and whether there are spaces at those institutions that embrace them and allow them to be there. I also want to refer to like a couple of my fellow IFTHN ambassadors, like some other women who are part of this program at AAAS, who are bringing both of their interests to the table, you know, whether it's like knitting and biology, or I think you guys are going to speak with Yamale, who's the founder of STEM from Dance. So I think some of that movement is happening already. But what I want to emphasize is that we can do more, and we can do more internally and externally. So I'm at Stanford now. I'm about to enter my third year. One of my best friends here is this guy named Hank Gerba. And I'll do a quick non sequitur about Hank. So if anyone has ever seen Sophia the Robot, you could raise hands, maybe, I don't know. But Sophia the Robot is this kind of like bald-headed cyborg. Hank literally traveled around the world with Sophia the Robot in a suitcase, like broken down, and went to Romania and all these crazy places, and would like put this robot together, and then would type all of the commands for this robot from off stage. And so Hank and I were both like coming at robotics, and now he's a PhD student in art history at Stanford. And we were like, here you are coming from art history, here I am coming from mechanical engineering. We both love robots, like how do we make this happen? So we started a group at Stanford called Critical Practices Unit, CPU, for all of my great computer nerds out there. We started CPU. We've started to create a space. We have funding where people from every different department at Stanford can come, exchange ideas, and work on projects. And now we've had 3 meetings. We've had people from like 14 departments, and we're speaking with a lot of the people from like the higher ups of the university about how do we make this a permanent thing. So I think some can be done internally, like if you are a part of a space where you're at a high school and you're in the robotics club, but you also really like fashion and you're like, oh my gosh, let's get this fashion and robotics universe to come together. You can build it internally. And then I think some of it needs to come externally. We need to see like more recognition for artists who are pushing and working in technology spaces, more support. And I think a lot of visibility. It's like I mentioned at the beginning, there's so many people who are already doing this. It's just about learning who they are.
I really love that. And I just want to thank you for talking with us today. I am so deeply inspired by your work. I am now motivated to get Jenny to teach me how to do ballet. Which I've never
from
been
you, Catie.
But yeah, no, I mean, Catie, I want you to as well. But you know, it's always fun discovering people's untapped passions. Yeah, and I'm so excited. And I think that, you know, If Then Ambassadors are such a like AAAS, If Then Ambassadors are such a powerful network. I mean, I have been so consistently inspired, amazed, just like energized by every person I've met so far. And you have really, like, the work you're doing is incredible. And I'm just excited to follow along as you continue.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also just wanted to call out and do a quick plug for the podcast that all of you should check out if you haven't already. I'll just throw the link for the Spotify, but it's Techsetters, like trendsetters in tech. And we now have 2 episodes left. So, I mean, we have 2 episodes up, so we should be good. And thank you so much for coming.
And Catie, there's so many more questions in the chat. How can people find you? What are your
Great
social
question. Please reach out to me. I mean, I have a website. My website is my name. It's just catiecuan.com. But my email and everything is on there. So please send me a note, like shoot me an email, find me on social media, all of the above. Don't be shy. I think you should absolutely feel like if you have a curiosity, if there's something you want to learn more about, whether it's from me, whether it's from another AAAS If Then ambassador. So the If Then ambassadorship, which I know I've kind of mentioned on and off, but it's really an initiative to like provide more visibility for amazing women who are doing work in STEM and to create this culture shift to inspire more women, just like all of you, to pursue STEM careers and to be resilient, you know, despite any of the challenges they might face along the way. So that website, the AAAS If Then ambassadorship website, will have all 125 women listed there. And if any of them are doing work that you're interested in, whether it's in AI or conservation, bat conservation, you know, we have someone who's like a carnivore primatologist, so she studies bears. There's all kinds of different things that you can learn about, careers, etc. And feel free to reach out to any of them. Feel free to reach out to me and say, I really want to meet this person, but I'm not sure if I should send them an email, and I'll reach out to them for you. For sure, don't be shy. Email, social media, all of the above. And then keep me posted on how you're doing. I mean, I think a couple of my mentors, you know, I mentioned I interned at Google a long time ago now, but a couple of my mentors there, I'm still in touch with, and I talk to them on a regular basis. Or even if it's not regular, I feel that I know them well enough that I can send them an email 2 or 3 years from now and be like, hey, I hope you're doing well. This is what I'm up to. What do you think? You know, so even if it's not today, even if it's not in 2 months, you could send me a note in 6 months or a year or whenever. And I think it's all fair game, because I believe so much in the power of women. I believe in the power of all of us to make excellent change, to do beautiful things in the world. And so don't be shy. Looking forward to being in touch.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I cannot wait to follow up and be in touch with you. And thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your day. It sounds like there's demos coming soon. There are like new things that will be invented. I fully expect to be downloading all of your apps. Keep me posted.
Us too.
100%. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.